Hello, everybody. My name is Rob Prather. As the sign says, I'm with Global Processing and SSGA, and I want to talk to you a little bit about identity preserved soybeans, grains, and other opportunities in our industry. So, I guess your first question is, who is SSGA? For some of you, this is probably the first time you've heard of us and wondering who we are. We're a member driven group of producers and companies focused on leading the development of IP soy and specialty grains in the value chain. We build these chains to enhance profitability through crops and products that are normally not available in the commodity channels. This is not just beans. This is not just corn. This is not just wheat. We expose producers, farmers to market information and to the needs of you to help them create and deliver the right crop to benefit your unique manufacturing processes and end product goals. We also advocate for a seamless IP crops trade by sharing information across government and industry connections, linking value chain members to create efficiencies and decrease market access barriers. SSGA is a partner to USSG nationally and globally, and we are a resource used primarily on IP crops and logistics and transportation. Why U.S. soybeans? U.S. versus Canada versus Brazil, Argentina. So the U.S. is a sustainable, reliable supplier for grains, for food grade soy, for specialty products. Everything is going to be available. The U.S. transportation system is functioning, although there have been canceled vessel sailings and some container availability issues that can delay your shipments depending on the region. Things are still operating. As a food maker, as a food producer, remember you're sourcing raw materials for food production. You're not buying grain. You're not buying beans. So in this time where things are getting a little tighter with container supply, with vessels, with global restrictions, it's probably a good time to plan ahead. Maybe think of advanced contracting. I know you've heard of it, maybe resistant to it, but maybe it's time to consider that or some other alternative strategy for your purchasing processes. Planning, patience, and persistence will win the day. So a lot of people are really worried about the Midwest weather. As you know, it's been a little bit wet in the Midwest. We've had a couple cold days, but so far, overall, I think things look pretty good. We could use more sun, but the combinations of weather that we're having right now, we do have plants emerging. There has been some replant in some limited areas. You hear flooding on the news, but overall, it's been wet, but right now we're okay. And so this is kind of you can see this map shows planting in the central states, a little slower in north central. And if anyone needs this resource, this is the NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Association. This is available on the website, on Google, wherever your provider is. You can Google this yourself and pull this information up. So that's what we did for this, just so that it's relative and accessible to you. So as I said earlier, it is early, but all indications show that we will have a successful crop. This is kind of some of you know what the CBOT is, some of you don't. The CBOT is a pricing standard in the U.S. Sort of sets guarantees, controls the market value. It's a way of stabilizing the supply and demand across different geographic regions. And as the map shows between the two red arrows, right now the CBOT is at a relatively low period. Prior to 2008, we had some $7 beans. Since 2008, it's been trending up. Everybody knows about the 14 crop, $15 beans. And right now it's in the mid eights. So for those of you looking to advance contract for 20 crop, it's a great time to do that. It's a great time to catch that. A lot of people want to negotiate 10 cents or 15 cents. And when the board moves like this, those negotiations are possible. When it goes back up, it's not. There's just no room to price. So we have confidence that the pricing is going to stay relatively stable for the next 2 or 3 months. There'll be some spikes, but I would recommend strongly that you contract now for 20 crop. 19 crop may be too late with the supply side's issues. But any questions you have on the CBOT, I would recommend messaging any of your current suppliers or any one of us directly, we would love to talk to you about this. It's hard to understand. It doesn't make sense to traditional business, but it's a key cornerstone of pricing and costing and strategy for you to be able to get what you want, when you want, and at the price you want. Time is the helper in the issue with the CBOT. So please reach out, ask questions on that. It's a big deal, and it's really hard to explain in 5, 10, 15-minute presentation. The current container industry, we're seeing notices that the fleets are expected to shrink in 2020. It should, and I say 2020. I'm talking 2020 crop year. I mean, late 2020, we'll see fleets shrink, like we've seen vessel cancellations. You'll see some pressure on the rates to go up, maybe some mid-month GRIs instead of announced GRIs like in the past. Sailings are down to the U.S. The number of vessels are down. So that has created some issues. Some of you have not been able to get shipments for 2 months. Some of you are doing fine. It just largely depends on your region. Last discussion we had on freight, containers are available East Coast and West Coast. Containers in the Midwest, with the exception of Chicago, are fairly tight. I know personally for our shipments, we have a lot of shipments going out. We had a dry spell through April, no equipment, no containers, no vessels showing up, no trains showing up. In late May, we've got a lot of containers going out in 2 and maybe 3 different vessels. And in a normal year, you would see 10 different vessels to choose from in a window like that. So if our late May vessels don't show up or don't sail, we'll have a lot of containers sitting. And most of us in the Midwest, I think, are having that struggle too. So a lot of questions are saying, if Chicago has containers, why can't we just drive to Chicago? You're in Iowa, Chicago's not that far away. It's just not that easy from a standpoint of trucking laws, driver availability, and most importantly, cost to move containers around like that. It just, the geography doesn't work. So anyway, again, ask questions of your supplier for that, ask questions of MDS for that. We'd be glad to sit down and talk to you about that one-on-one, or maybe we have another group session where we can go deeper on that. There's experts on the SSGA board and within our group that have done trucking and logistics their entire life and are super sharp at being able to help nail that down a little bit more, what you're needing. So I think the most important thing that we need to say is the U.S. has been open for business during COVID-19. Despite where you're at politically, we've been loading and shipping beans in every container we can get. I know North Dakota's been open. Minnesota's had some slowdowns, but they've been open. Iowa's been open. And I'm not just talking essential business. I'm talking open for business. So, when you talk about sustainability from the U.S., when you talk about, we have supply, we have been open during COVID-19. And I think that's very important to know that we are committed to doing the job, understanding that we're feeding people. This isn't, it is a business, but at the same time, we have a responsibility to make sure our things get out and people get fed. So anyway, that is that on that subject. So what exactly is IP? Could be called identity preserved, could be called identity preservation. I guess it depends on which tense you're using. So in general, identity preservation is a practice of segregating crops throughout the process of growth, processing, and distribution in order to deliver a specific trait or quality to the end market. That's the long version of it. The short version of it is we work with the buyer on what they want in a soybean. We help the farmer to get that seed and plant that seed. We talk to the farmer about segregation after harvest, cleaning equipment. While we're processing it, that particular seed has its own storage location so that throughout the entire process, that seed that the buyer wants is exactly what the buyer is going to get. It's not a mix. It's not an open market purchase. It's not something we're buying from the port. These are our direct contracted farmers controlling that identity. So some of the identity preserved or IP products, may be a specific variety or a higher protein or higher sugar, non-GMO, clear hilum, small bean size, large bean size with the natto guys. Those are IP. High oleic oil is kind of another buzzword right now that people have. So it more or less what you need is what you need to convey to the suppliers, and through the discussion between everyone, between us and you, we can figure out what you need in IP. Typically, with an IP bean, it's the same bean every shipment. So your manufacturing process is the same process at every manufacturing run. Your tofu will be the same color. Your tofu efficiency will be the same, or whatever. Soy milk. Your recipes won't vary from load to load. You won't have to have someone who knows everything about your product. You can just basically put it in and go and expect the same output. You should expect the same output. That is the whole point of this IP thing. Seems like it might cost more in the beginning, but I guarantee you, from what I've seen with most of my customers and most processors I've talked to, is IP is actually cheaper on a total cost standpoint. I don't have numbers to back that up yet. It's just talk, but we are working on that. So stay tuned. So, as I mentioned before, you got some soy food. This is sort of a generic list of us: soy milk, tofu, miso, soy sauce, tempeh. It seems to be an up and coming market. Natto, which we've got a pretty good handle on that in the U.S. from the North Dakota side, and sprouting beans. They're niche, but that's a growth area. It's very specialized. You won't find too many people doing it. It's high risk. If you find somebody you trust doing that, you just stick with them. And then other products. The more we get delved into this identity preservation, the more we realize there's products out there we don't know about, which again is the constant development and evolution of what we want to provide you. That's why we need to meet you. The virtual is great. I really wish I could be there in person to talk to you guys after the discussion, but we'll let the technology work for now, and I'll get back over there at some point. So step one, select the food grade soybean varieties from the U.S. There's hundreds of them, just depending on what you want. Each supplier's got a little bit of different variety based on soil, weather. We just have to figure out what you want. So we do have extensive private research programs. We do have new bean genetics producers and manufacturers that are able to test things. So here's my advice. Here's my request. When I ask you, I say, what do you want? And 99% of the buyers say, good bean, good price. How do you put science on good bean, good price? I have no idea. And if somebody has an idea, please tell me. I'd love to figure that out. I want to give you the best bean you can. We want to give you the best bean you can. We want to give you the best price we can. But we can't go to a seed breeder with the request of good bean, good price. So is it protein that you need? Is it size that you need? Is it color that you need? Is it beanie flavor or not beanie flavor? Those are things that we need to know. De-hulling efficiency, roundness, shape. Those are things you need to share with your suppliers. And through that, collectively, the supplier can go to these soybean researchers and these soybean breeders and say, here's what my customers want. And when enough of us do that, we can affect some change in the industry. We've got a lot of good varieties now. I think there's potential to get a lot better varieties to help you make a better, more efficient, more profitable product. But we need to hear from you. We need your input there in order to start this from the ground up. Different types of soy foods take different types of beans. My great tofu bean doesn't make tempeh worth a darn. My good soy milk bean may not make tofu. So everything we have is non-GMO, and I'm speaking on behalf of the group here. When we're talking food IP beans, we're talking mostly non-GMO beans. That's what the industry wants. That's what we provide. And so each variety will have its own quality characteristics, which I'll show you here in just a second. So here's some examples of quality characteristics. We have seed size, hilum color. Hilum is the eye. Sometimes people say black eye beans or clear eye beans. It's where the seed attached to the plant. So that's the hilum. So, some customers, they say in Japan, they like black hilum beans. Customers in Thailand or Malaysia or other areas, they want clear hilum only. The assumption is black hilum is GMO, clear hilum is not. That's a false assumption. That's just typically, how most people view the situation. That is not the case. Again, talk with your supplier. They can tell you exactly what you need to know about every bean so you can make the right decision. Protein, big deal. Protein's a good indicator of tofu. Tofu capability. Too high is too hard. Too low is too soft and crumbly. Just depends. Oil content. Again, what are you using it for? Are you crushing it for meal? Are you crushing it for oil? With the change to an IP bean for oil, you can increase your oil output on paper by 2, 3, 4%, and not do anything else other than just put a new bean through your facility. So seed shape, roundness. Some people dehull. They like a round seed for efficiency. No hard seeds, no stow beans. Protein structure. This is something that we're just getting into. Historically, we hear 7S, 11S protein. That was in a very popular bean in the past that made great tofu. I got to be honest with you, I'm not a food scientist. I don't exactly know what protein structure means, but I know people who do. And so I can convey that to them. So sugars, natural sugars, seed color, taste, and of course, physical appearance, which is always a big deal, regardless of how it performs. Appearance image is everything. That's just how we are. So those are some quality characteristics. I wanted to tell you a little bit about the harvest and the storage processes. So our farmers go to great lengths to preserve the integrity of your IP beans. So morning dews, evening dews restrict the harvest time. A lot of the farmers will start at 10:30 or 11 in the morning, and they'll stop by 4 o'clock, whether they're done or not, because if they go too early or go too late, they'll dirt stain the seed coat, which hurts your appearance, which could discolor your tofu or your soy milk. Also, moisture management. Maybe the beans look ready, maybe the farmer has time, but if the beans aren't ready moisture-wise, they will wait. And these are excruciating days for these farmers. They hate waiting because you've worked all year for this one time and you want to get it done. But our IP guys in the Midwest and most of us in the U.S. understand we're not going to ruin it at the last minute. So it's a great effort to get you what you need and to make it nice as you need it. And if you see some farmers that are growing IP, please tell them thank you for that, because it's when the other guys are going, these guys are waiting to make sure they do it right. A lot of the equipment that they use has gentle handling. So a screw auger is a traditional type of grain moving, very efficient, very fast, very damaging to soybean seed coats, very damaging to other grains. So we use belt conveyors, rubber belt conveyors that actually carry the beans up. We have bean let down ladders inside the bin. So rather than the beans falling all the way down to the bottom, they'll take a nice slow path. Again, all this is designed to keep the integrity of the seed coat, to keep the integrity of the bean. For you natto guys or your sprouters, this is crucially important. Reducing impacts do reduce the germ. So again, ask those questions. Make sure your supplier is doing that right. I can tell you that all the guys I know, all the suppliers I know in the Midwest, men and women that do what I do, they do all this stuff, and so it's not an issue at all. For process aging and packaging, I think most of you know this. We use color sorters. We're a food safety certified, manufacturing operations. We do work on a shipment schedule. So, we have capacity, but we have priorities for shipment schedules. Get your orders in early, and also be clear with your specifications. So we have a lot of people that want pictures of a clean bean and get mad when we deliver a number 2 bean when they ordered a number 2 bean. So look at the specifications on your contract. If you don't like it, don't accept it. Talk to somebody about it. Figure it out. We can get you what you want. You just have to ask for it. So packaging, 30 kg bags, poly tote bags. I think most people know that. Bulk, loose, and container. Here's a couple pictures coming up. The one on the left is 30 kg bags. The one on the right is tote bags. This particular company shrink wraps the bags. Not all of us do. Again, that exporter's customer requests that, so it's a customized loading for that particular customer. So you can or can't, depending on what you want. And for the sealed containers, they're all CTPAT compliant. They're sealed with bolt locks or cable locks. That way, we will convey to you the seal number, so if it's been tampered with. Typically, customs will open a container and do some random inspections, in your country. but anyway, you'll have that information. We seal them here. Once it's in our plant, once it's in our system, it's not going to get touched till it's eaten. So for SSGA, our members are committed to delivering safe food, high quality, product options, flexibility with what we can do for you, sustainable and reliable supply, price competitive compared to other points of the world. And again, not just purchase price at the time you're buying the contract. Look at your entire cost of operations. An IP bean will make you more profitable as a company. We also are committed to the future. This is where it's going to happen. We can see the demand growing in the U.S. We know we're behind the rest of the world. We're following your model, but this is going to grow. And as I mentioned before, we are relationship driven. As much as the technology is great, I need to be there talking to you. I need to see you, as do most of us, shaking hands. There's familiar faces that I've been missing seeing. I miss getting to Asia. I've missed a couple trips this year. And as soon as the world opens back up, I'm heading over. But, relationships are important. I think this time with not being able to travel has sort of made it, to me, understand how important those relationships are. I miss lots of my colleagues in the industry. But from an IP standpoint in the U.S., we have a huge capacity to grow. IP non-GMO soybeans are 3 to 5% of the market. Non-GMO soybeans, let me back that up. IP soybeans are 3 to 5% of U.S. production of soybeans. Non-GMO soybeans comprise 6 to 8% of U.S. production of soybeans. We have a lot of market share that we can change over from GMO to non-GMO. We have a lot of acres that will be willing to change from just beans to food beans. And that's why we're working on wanting to meet with you, working on these pricing issues with container availability. All of these things are in the way to making it happen. But we're confident with talking with you that we can make them happen. So that's what we're working on. That's what we're going after. We have a huge capacity to grow, and we'd love to grow with you on that standpoint. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I do want to say, so Eric always says this, and I'm going to say this: this container vessel, if it was loaded with bananas, everyone in America could have 2 bananas. That's how big that ship is. I hope I got it right, Eric. And if not, we'll get it right someday. But thank you, everyone. I'll be standing by watching for your questions.